Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you all for coming today. And how many of you have a copy of this book? Prayers Inspired by Bhagavad Gita. So you can open it to page 22. So in this book, basically, I have taken the Gita's verses, and normally the Gita is seen as a source of wisdom. Of course it is. At the same time, the Gita is spoken by Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And he is our well-wisher. He wants to not only bless us with wisdom, but he also wants us to bless us with strength to apply that wisdom. So, taking the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita and having prayers inspired by that enables us to connect with the Gita's wisdom at a deeper level, at a more, not necessarily deeper, but a more personal level. And so that's what I try to do. So you'll see in each page, there is one verse translated poetically in English, and there's a picture of one deity of Krishna from various temples across the world. There's a one-sentence spiritual summary, and then there is a one-page prayer on the right side. So let us go to the prayer on page 22. Those of you who don't have a book, it's also... Oh, why is it not visible here? We have to switch, turn do something over here?
Yeah. I'll just change it.
So it's also visible here, because it's more comfortable this way. So let's try to recite the verse once. Tataha shvetair hayayir yukte mahati syandane sthitau madhava pandavaschaiva Divyau Shankau Pradadmatu. Then Krishna and Arjuna, standing tall, on their chariot, white steeds and all, blew their conches loud and bright, a sound that shook the field with might. This is describing the scene on the battlefield just before the Bhagavad Gita is spoken. The actual conversation of the Bhagavad Gita starts from chapter 2. So before that, Arjuna and Krishna are there, and they're about to start the fighting. That scene is being described. So let's recite the words once more. But this time let's try to do it not responsively, but collectively. That means all of us together. Together. Tataha shvetayir hayayukte mahati syandane sthitau madhava pandavaschaiva divyau shankau pradadmatu. So if you like, you can repeat after me. My dear Lord, let me remember that my life story is a part of your story. Yes. So I would request different participants to read one paragraph. Who would like to read the first paragraph? Yes, please.
My dear Lord, you are always with me in the chariot of this body, just as you were with Arjuna on this battlefield.
Yes. So see, the Gita's message, the Gita's themes, at one level, they are timeless. At another level, they are timely. At one level, it is universal. At another level, it is contextual. That means the Gita was spoken at a particular time, at a particular space, that's in a particular context. That is on the Kurukshetra war field when Krishna and Arjuna were there together. It's contextual, but it's also universal. Universal means that it applies at all times. That just as the body is often said to be like a chariot in the Upanishads. And in the body, there is the Atma and the Paramatma. So that is like Arjuna and Krishna. So just like there was a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, like that, there is also meant to be a conversation between, so just as there was a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, like that, it's a conversation between the Atma and the Paramatma. And the Gita's message in that sense is not just about a conversation that happened at a particular time. It's about a conversation that is an ongoing, living conversation in our own heart, where we get higher guidance and we get a higher vision and purpose for our life. So let's move to the next paragraph. Who would like to read? Yes, please. Yeah.
Please, O Lord, let this beatific vision of the human divine partnership become the enduring image that resides and presides in my memory. Let this be the centerpiece of the story I tell myself internally, as my life story unfolds externally with these inevitable ups and downs.
Yeah. So, see, when we go through life, if we consider our life journey, say most of you will be around 20 or so, probably between around that age. Now, some of us may be around 40, I might be around 50. So, we are all at a particular stage in our journey. Some of you may be 25, 30, whatever. So, now, in our journey, life journey, there are many events that happen. So, we could say some events that happen are positive, some events that happen are negative, some events that happen are small, some events that happen that are big. So broadly, many things happen in our life. Now, when these events happen, we process those events internally, and we process them differently. Each person processes the event differently. So, the broad question we're discussing today is that uh, what makes people do what they do? Or, see, basically, across human history and geography, motivation has always been a mystery. Motivation means that we speak something to someone and that person suddenly gets very angry. What's wrong with you? Why did it? I only spoke something small. Why did you get so angry with it? Or he has a nice friendship with someone, and suddenly that person stops talking with us, stops responding to our messages. Nowadays, in modern parlance, especially in romantic relations, people say like you ghost someone, treat the other person like a ghost. So what happened? What went wrong? So basically, how people behave, it can often seem to be like a mystery. Now, this mystery may not seem very mysterious unless that other person does something which is very unexpected. So, like we all have our moods, and sometimes when we meet someone, that person is in a cheerful mood, somebody is not in a such cheerful mood. But if we could say, in terms of behavior, broadly, there is like a range. People might be in a good mood, in a bad mood, but that overall the behavior stays in a particular range. So even if somebody is in a bad mood, no, it's not that they start hitting girls or speaking like very severe bad words. It's not that when the person is in a good mood, suddenly they say, okay, I will sign my estate over to you. It's not like that. There is some moderation in that. But sometimes what happens, this moderation goes off. And people just start behaving in extreme ways. Now, that's the time we start wondering, what is going on? Why is this person behaving like this? And while how others behave, what motivates them to do what they do, that could be like a mystery that is a curiosity. Isn't it that, okay, we watch some TV series or read some novel in which there is a whodunit mystery. This house was robbed or there was this murder over there. Who did it? Now that's a matter of curiosity. It's like you could say, when the mystery of motivation, I hope this term mystery of motivation is clear. Mystery of motivation means हम जो करते हैं वो क्यों करते हैं, या लोग जो करते हैं वो क्यों करते हैं. तो अभी अगर कोई इंडिया cricket is very popular. So sometimes in a very critical moment, a batsman suddenly tries to hit a big shot and gets out. Why do I have to bat like that? Isn't it? So maybe the post-match conference, that person will tell, does it make sense? Or why do people do what they do? Hmm? That is, when it comes to others, it's a mystery, but you could say it's a curiosity. It's a more of a casual curiosity. Okay? I would like to know why they did what they did. But that same dynamic can be applied to ourselves. That sometimes we act in ways that doesn't make any sense to us. At that time, why did I get so angry? Or suddenly, we are in a good mood and something happens and our mood just becomes so bad. We just don't feel like doing anything. So what happens? When that happens, then it's a matter of curiosity still, but it is not a casual curiosity anymore. It becomes a much more serious curiosity. Like say, if somebody's house has been robbed, okay, I'd like to know who robbed it. But if my own house has been robbed, then it's not a casual curiosity, isn't it? That becomes what we can call as a existential curiosity. It becomes मेरे अस्तित्व का ही सवाल है कि if somebody robbed my home, and will they rob it again? I had to find that person. Or what was it? How did this get robbed? So now we may talk about robbing of money, but when you talk about a robbery happening in our own home, so there is. Have all of you heard this word alcoholic? You all have probably heard the word alcoholic. Have you heard the word shopaholic?
Yes.
What is a shopaholic?
Like to shop.
Yes, it doesn't just like to shop. Yes, they are like shopping is their alcohol. So they say shop till you drop. This is like a person's alcoholic, drink till you drop. So they say shop till you drop. Now, the shopaholism at one level, it may not be harmful to the health, but it's definitely harmful to the bank account, isn't it? So now, if something inside us is itself harming us or destroying us, sometimes we see something, okay, let me buy this, let me buy that. Now some of us may not have enough money to buy, but sometimes now we will shopaholism might be there, gambling addiction might be there. Nowadays, like sports betting has become a big thing. Especially among young people, it's like become crazy. And at least in the past, we would have to go to some gambling den, some casino or whatever, where we could go and gamble. But now the gambling den is with us all the time on our phone. So now if something is impelling us, is making us act in a way that is completely out of character with who we are, then okay, what happened over here? So for us, our own motivation. So why did I do like that? So that, understanding that is very important. So Arjuna came on the battlefield and he was ready to fight. And suddenly he said, I can't fight. I can't fight. It was completely, in one sense, unexpected behavior. So why would you do like that? It's like some player who is practiced and prepared for, say, the World Cup, and then they come to the World Cup finals, the most important match of the life of the person. At that time the person says, I can't play. What happened? This is what you prepared for throughout your life. How can you not play now? Are you injured? He says, no, I'm not injured, but I can't play. So sometimes what happens, the way something up comes from inside us and just seems to make us act in ways that is just disturbing. Sometimes it is disturbing, sometimes it can be just devastating. कभी कभी उससे हम विचलित हो जाते हैं कैसे क्यों किया मैंने, कभी कभी क्या होता है विनाश हो जाता है उससे. So somebody spends a little more money, supposed to spend 1,000 rupees, they spend 2,000 rupees. It's okay. Somebody is supposed to spend 1,000 rupees and they spend 50,000 rupees. Or something. What happened? Why did you spend money like this? Isn't it? So basically for us, understanding our own motivation. See, the word motivation has two meanings. One is like motivational talks or motivational speakers. That means the talks which give us energy. So I am using the word motivation not in the same sense of energy. Motivational talk means you hear that talk and you get energy, you get spirit. Come on, I should achieve this, I should do this, I should like that. There's motivational speakers are there. So motivation का एक अर्थ है शक्ति या ऊर्जा, energy. But I am talking about another meaning of the word motivation. Motivation is the driving force. Now both may seem similar, but generally here when I say energy is, I know what I should be doing, but I don't feel like doing it. Generally when we use it is the positive energy. Like if you hear a motivational talk before the exam, then I'm going to study hard, I'm going to achieve. That's positive energy. But motivation at a broad level means it's just the driving force. What drives you? And sometimes something drives us to do the things that we know we should not do. It's like, say I am here and I need to go here. This is my destination. I have got 1 month and I got an important exam. I have to prepare for this. That's where I want to go. But it seems something comes from inside and it pulls us in a different direction. Or something comes from inside and takes us in the exact opposite direction. So what is this happening? So in one sense, understanding what motivates us is probably the most important thing in our life. Why do we do what we do? Now, the new year has started. Many of us may make resolutions. The problem with making resolutions is that there is resolution and there is dissolution. Dissolution means the resolution dissolves. So what happens is, we tend to do what we intend to not do. जो करना नहीं है, जो नहीं करने का फैसला किया है, वो ही हम कर देते हैं. How many of you have this experience? Now, almost all of us. So we tend to do what we don't intend to do. And for me, my spiritual journey began, this was also one of the factors. Since my childhood, I had a lot of fascination with English language. So one of my hobbies was to just pick up a dictionary and memorize words. And I had developed a fairly good vocabulary by that. And I was a bit short-tempered when I was in school and college, especially in school, but in college also. So what happened? Sometimes I would get angry. Now having a bad temper is a problem, but having a bad temper and a good vocabulary is a deadly problem. Most people, when they get angry, what happens? They start yelling and screaming, but what they are speaking doesn't make much sense. Then we just understand this person has lost his head. So we turn off from that person. But if somebody is very articulate, they can speak very well, then they can be very sarcastic, they can be very cutting, they can be very hurtful. So, and I was a nice person, at least I thought I was a nice person. But then what would happen? That there would be these periods when I would speak something which would be so hurtful. And then I would completely forget that. There's one Roman thinker said, anger is like temporary insanity. What we do when we get angry, we don't remember only. And after that, I would be normally very nice, polite, even helpful kind of person. But during those periods, I don't know what I would do. So in those days, technology was not so easily available. I was growing up in 1990s, late 80s, 1990s. So one of my friends, he, in his backpack, he brought a small tape recorder, run on a battery. And when I got angry, he turned on the tape recorder. And I went on a rant for 4 or 5 minutes, and he recorded the whole thing. And if you have ever heard your voice recorded for the first time, it sounds a little different from what we hear with our own ears. So then he started playing that voice. I couldn't recognize my voice. So when he played that, I said, "What a rude person this is." And he looked at me and he smiled. He says, that voice kept speaking. This is terrible. You know, who would want to be with such a person? This person will have no friends at all. I went for almost 5 minutes, that whole recording went on. And as I was hearing, I was thinking, I know this person, I've heard this voice somewhere. But I couldn't figure out where the voice was. And after 5 minutes, I was very disturbed. Now, what kind of person would ever speak something like this? And then he told me, you know whose voice this is? It is your voice. I was completely shocked. Flabbergasted is the English word. What? See, I had spoken something terrible, but it was like the memory had been completely wiped out. So I didn't even remember I had spoken that. So that's when I started thinking, what is going on? It's almost like inside me, there is some other person. And that some other person takes over me and starts speaking through me. It's like if you have a car, you are driving your car, you want to go in a particular direction, but somebody else is in their car, that person pushes you aside, takes the car over and takes the car somewhere else. So I felt, is there like somebody else inside me? And that person is acting through me. So that's when my search, I was always a avid reader, but from that point my reading started becoming more internal, more about psychology, philosophy, spirituality. So basically, one of the key questions was, what makes us do what we do? So for me, it was not, as I said, it was not here like a casual curiosity. It became an existential curiosity. So for all of us also, there are some incidents in our life where we just become rudely awakened. What did I do? Why did I do that? What was I thinking? So those are moments, it's actually when an awakening can happen. So when we are talking about a new year, we would like to make new resolutions for new year. We would like to have a better life, and that's wonderful. But what is important is that we get some new, better insights about what is working inside us. And what I understood from the Bhagavad Gita, I'll try to share. See, here is our existence is 3 levels. There is the soul, there is the mind, and there is the body. So this is like a computer system in which there are 3 things. The soul is like the user of the computer, the body is like the hardware, the mind is like the software. So now relevant to our point is the mind. The mind is a storyteller. The mind keeps telling stories. I'll go a little bit deeper into the mind, but we're talking about one particular aspect of it. The mind tells us particular stories of who we are and how we act. And according to the story that is told inside by our mind, we interpret events accordingly. So let me explain what this means. That the mind tells stories and we interpret events accordingly. If we consider there is an event on one side that's external, and there is the experience of the event. The experience of the event is basically like a story interpretation. Like, see, if we are watching a movie and we just see two people fighting with each other, now we may not be able to figure out who is the hero and who is the villain over it. Maybe one person looks attractive, the other person doesn't look that attractive. May say the attractive looking person is the hero. But sometimes the villains also, they may be very sophisticated, deceptive, they also look very attractive. Isn't it? So just by the action of fighting, we can't figure out necessarily who is the hero, who is the villain. But then if we know what is the backstory, okay, this person acted like this person acted like this person acted like this. Okay, this is the hero, this is the villain. This is the sidekick of the hero, this is the supporter of the hero, this is the supporter of the villain. Like that, we don't just look at the actions. No. We look at the actions in a movie in the context of a story. And then the actions of the characters make sense within the story. To the extent we know the story, to that extent the actions make sense. So like that, for all of us, when particular events happen, and there are particular ways in which we act in those events. So we have a story going on inside us. And based on that story, the event is interpreted accordingly. So for example, if we experience loss could be in an exam we don't do so well. Loss could be maybe we invest money somewhere and we lose that money. Loss could be that we apply for a job or apply for an internship and we don't get it. So we experience a loss. Now, it could be that somebody gets into a romantic relationship and then the relationship breaks down. So people use the word breakup, but what happens is the breakdown. There is no up in that, generally speaking. But there's a loss over there. Now when a loss happens, there are three ways we could look at it. I have lost. This is more like an objective comment. Like, sometimes if a cricket match is going on, there's a commentary going on. So some commentators are very biased. That means if the India-Pakistan match is going on, there's a Pakistani commentator. The Pakistani commentator will try to sell everything from Pakistan's perspective. So even if an Indian batsman is batting very well, they'll say, yeah, he's batting well, but one bad shot and after that, those are the good players. So once he gets out, everything is going to collapse. So even when something good is going on, we'll try to tilt it in a negative way. So I have lost is more like a unbiased or an objective commentator. I have lost. Now we could go and say I am lost. Not just I have lost, but I am lost. Now I am lost means what? It's not just an opportunity, it's a sense of direction, it's a sense of purpose itself. Say if you apply for IIT and you don't get into it. Okay, I lost that opportunity. But somebody has made the purpose of their life to get into IIT. And they apply for it twice, thrice, and they don't get into it. Now what am I meant to do? I am lost. So in between I have lost and I am lost, which is a more damaging interpretation? I am lost. That's a loss of direction. It's not just opportunity, but it's direction or purpose itself that is lost. I have a friend in California who has done his PhD psychology psychologist expertise. He has done his PhD in the post-celebrity lives of basketball players. Like cricket is big in India, basketball is very big in America. So now among various careers, sports and movies, these are most glamorized careers, but in both these careers, the lifespan is very short. At least in movies, you can reinvent yourself as, initially you are the hero or the heroine, then you can become the mother or the father of the hero or heroine. And then you can reinvent yourself. But in sports, you can similarly reinvent yourself as a sports commentator or sport analyst. But generally in these careers, your peak comes very early. In most careers, by the age of 45, 50, 55, that's when you slowly start coming to our peak. But in sports, if you're 45, you're like a dinosaur. Not in size, but in antiquity. You're so old, like a fossil. So now, so what happens? That some of these players, they may be very successful, but suddenly their body starts failing them. And then what do? Their whole lives, becoming successful in sports is not easy. It's brutally competitive. You have to work extremely hard. Even if they succeed, suddenly by the age of 35, 36, 37, 40 is almost over completely. And what do you do at that time? At that time they start feeling, I am lost. So what happens? If they do not have direction on one side, and because if they were successful and they have money, then they can just ruin themselves. They can get into drugs, they can get into all kinds of squandering the money, and then they end up completely ruined. So I am lost is much more damaging. But the most damaging is I am a loser. So it is not just a loss of opportunity, a loss of purpose, it is a loss of self-worth. So now, this is where the mind's storytelling comes in. So when I say the mind is like a storyteller, the mind is like a commentator. So now, generally speaking, in a cricket match, if we play, what happens? The commentary is for the audience, for the spectators. The commentary is not heard by the players. But imagine a match in which the player is constantly hearing the commentary. And the commentary is very negative. The batsman hits a very good shot, and the commentator says, that was just a lucky stroke. This batsman cannot bat at all. Just one day he was lucky, one shot he was lucky. And this bowler is a deadly bowler, and this batsman is going to get out the next one. So if constantly there is a negative commentary coming in, and the player is constantly hearing that commentary, what will happen? The player will get completely discouraged. And all that negative commentary will completely paralyze and overwhelm the player. So for us, at one level we are the player, at another level we are also the commentator. Or we could say we as souls are the players, but our mind, or at least a part of our mind, is the commentator. And everything that we do, or everything that is happening around us, our mind is constantly making a commentary. So for example, right now you're sitting in this class. The mind will be making a commentary. Hey, when this kirtan was going on, it was very nice. Now this class, it's become too complicated. I don't think I can understand this. Maybe I'm not smart enough to understand this. Now when the mind starts thinking, I'm not smart enough to understand this, then even if it is understandable, afterwards you think, let me not put in the effort to understand. Or the mind may say, this is taking too much time. Can I sneak out quietly from the behind? Nobody will notice. Then, throughout the session, you will be thinking, can I go get out of here? So, at each moment, the mind is giving a comment. Now, this can happen for the audience, this can happen even for the speaker. Even when I am speaking, it's like sometimes I am giving a class and the audience is very responsive. Sometimes I am giving a class and the audience is looking at me as if they are watching a foreign language movie without subtitles. And then, my mind starts thinking, whatever I'm speaking, this audience is not interested, or what I'm speaking is not understandable to the audience. From there, the mind can go say, maybe I'm not a good speaker. And what am I doing, spending my life traveling and speaking if I'm not a good speaker? So it's like just in a class, the blank face of one audience can suddenly change my mood. Now, in Australia once, there's one place I go, and there's one person who comes and sits right in front, like you're sitting over right in front. But throughout the talk, This person is constantly glaring at me. Not even staring, glaring. And गुस्से से देख रहा है ऐसे, आंखों से जला देगा ऐसे. And then the only way I can give the class over there is look at everyone except him. But that is a good example to understand what happens to us inside us. So I started by talking about motivation. So inside us, we may have the motivation to do one particular thing, but inside us there is a storyteller, there is a commentator. And that commentator can give a commentary in such a way that we may just completely change our direction. And then we may end up, as I said, we tend to do what we don't intend to do, or what we intend to not do. That's because the player goes with a particular plan to bat, but the commentator starts speaking in such a particular way that the player gets affected. Now we can tell the player, you don't have to listen to the commentator. But this is not a commentator we can get out of our head. It's not a earphone that we have put externally. This commentator is right inside us. So for us, what we need to do is change the story that is being told inside us. And that is what the Bhagavad Gita does for Arjuna. Let's look at the next paragraph and try to understand what happened. Who would like to read the third paragraph? Yes, please.
The world outside and the mind inside tell me many stories. Stories in which sometimes I am winner and sometimes I am loser. These stories are always created on either what is done to me or what is done by me. But both what is done to me and what is done by me are meant to be a part of your magnificent and benevolent plan for my ultimate welfare and indeed for everyone's ultimate welfare.
So, see, Arjuna went into the battlefield. We consider Arjuna, when he came to the battlefield, around him, there's a particular story. You can say that inside him, but he was a character in that particular story. The story was that he is a Pandava, he is a great hero, and the Kauravas had done terrible wrongs to them, and the Kauravas will do wrongs to all of society, and they have to be stopped. So when he came to the battlefield, Arjuna had a positive story inside him. The positive story is that this is a righteous war. War is never a good thing. War is hell. But sometimes war is the hell that is necessary to prevent a worse hell. So he understood that and he came to fight the war. He had fought many wars before and he fought this war. He was ready to fight this war also. Then suddenly what happened? As he came, he was on one side of the battlefield. But then he came in the middle of the battlefield. Senayor Ubayor Madhye Tham Sthapaya Me Achyuta. And when he came in the middle of the battlefield, the story inside him suddenly changed. The story inside him became that these are Bhishma and Drona. They are my elders. They are the elders from whom I learned archery. They are the elders for whose pleasure I learned archery. Now those are the elders with whom I want to kill with the same archery. For what? Just a kingdom? What kind of greedy person would want to kill his own elders for a mere kingdom? And that story inside him changed so dramatically that I can't fight. So some people say Arjuna suddenly became scared. Well, not exactly. Sometimes, right now, there's a war going on with Russia and Ukraine. So in both countries, they have lost lots of able-bodied men. So there's always the gender equality which people want. But still, in most parts of the world, it's understood that you don't send women to battle. In movies, you might have some superheroines who can fight a lot. But in real life, it's not. So they recruit able-bodied men. And then, if the men are not ready, then they conscript them. Conscript means forcibly you have to join the army. If you don't join the army, you'll be put in jail. So when people are conscripted like that, at that time they are not really ready to fight. And when they see the opposite army, they see the bombs exploding, the cannons blowing around them, they might just get scared and they want to run away from there. So was Arjuna's fear like that? No, Arjuna had fought great wars. And Arjuna had fought these very warriors before at Virat. So it was not that Arjuna was scared of their armor. Not once in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita does Arjuna ever mention fear of his own death. So there was fear, but it was not fear of his own death. It was fear of doing the wrong thing. Fear that I might be fighting out of greed and I will cause, for the sake of gaining a temporary kingdom, I will cause great destruction. So basically what happened? In this story, Arjuna saw himself as a hero. But suddenly, the story changed, and in that new story, he became like a villain. In fact, he says that, yes, somebody might say that if you don't fight, they are going to fight and they are going to attack you. He says, yes, they will attack me, but they are blinded by greed. And that's why they are doing what they are doing. Lobho pahata chetasa. But if I am not blinded by greed, then how can I fight like that? And if I fight, then how am I any better than them? So basically for us, the story which the mind is telling us, the commentary which is coming from the mind, that can change dramatically. And when that changes, it changes our mood, it changes our motivation, and then it changes our action completely. So that's why if we want to become better in our lives, it's not just a matter of making a resolution. I won't do this, I won't act like this, I'll act like that. It's good to make resolutions, but it's that if the story inside us is changed, we cannot simply by brute willpower keep pushing on. So it's important that we change that story that is there inside us. In fact, what the whole Bhagavad Gita does is, it changes Arjuna's story. So this is, you could say, this is the story of Arjuna from we start seeing Arjuna from 1.11. So 1.11 to 1.20 is the story. But from 1.26 to 2.10, this is the story. You start thinking, how can I fight? And thus, he becomes completely paralyzed. Now, by the end of the Gita, what happens is, that same Arjuna, in fact, Arjuna is ready to fight. Now, ready to fight, why? Because Krishna has revealed to him a bigger plan, a bigger purpose. Krishna told him that you are not fighting this war simply to get a kingdom because of your own greed. You are fighting this war because I have a bigger plan for the world. And in that plan, you have a part. You are meant to be my instrument in bringing dharma in the world, in bringing peace and prosperity in the world. And for that purpose, you need to fight. Now there's elaborate philosophy in the Bhagavad Gita, and if you start going to technicality of the philosophy, it will take a long time. But the end result of that philosophy is, the story which Arjuna was telling himself changed. That. So for all of us, we may focus on resolution, Like if I want to change myself, if I want to improve myself, now I may make some resolutions. Resolutions are good, but resolution is more like determination. This is what I am going to do. But what we need to recognize is that our resolutions can be sabotaged by our mind. And we want positive resolution, that is good, but underlying the positive resolution is we need a positive story. So positive story could mean, say, if I start thinking, if I tend to get angry, or I tend to waste a lot of time on social media, or I tend to spend a lot of time chit-chatting, or I have some bad habits, whatever. Now, we may identify ourselves with that. I am a time waster. I have no determination. Internally, generally, we won't directly say that I am a loser. But in some ways, we may start thinking like that. And then, as long as the story is like that. So, if somebody wants to give up alcohol, but if they internally keep identifying, I'm an alcoholic. Now, what may happen is, by that, this is who I am, I'm never going to change, better let me just do this. So it's important that there is, I'll make 2 points as we move forward to the changing of the story. See, there is our identity and there is our identification. Let me explain the difference between the two. Identity and identification, they are not the same. How many of you are Asians? All of you. But how many of you think you are Asians? Probably till I asked this question, you don't thought, If will you introduce us someone, I'm Asian? No. Because while that is a part of our identity, but that's not how we identify ourselves. Isn't it? Like in the West, in America especially, they often identify Indians as Asians. More specifically, they say you're South Asian. And the word Asian is used for Chinese people. But India, China, we are all in the same continent. So now, I was in America I started going to America from 2014 every year, for almost 3 to 6 months on speaking tours. The first time in American college, my student asked me, are you an Asian? So I had to think, yeah. Am I an Asian? Yeah, I am. But I don't identify myself as Asian. So there is an identity and there is an identification. So we all have many identities. So if I consider, for example, if I am here, now I have an identity based on my gender. I have an identity based on my education. So I'm a man, I had education that I'm engineering. Now I could say I have an identity based on my job or my career or my calling. So I could say that I am a spiritual teacher now. I could have an identity based on my nationality. When I go to America, one of the things I teach there is that we are souls, that we are spiritual beings. But at the immigration office, if they ask me, where are you from? He says, I'm not the body, I'm the soul. I'm not from any country in this world. And that will not be relevant over there, isn't it? And say that if I say I am the soul, they'll say, okay, my sole goal is to get you out of this our country. So, there is particular identity that is important for us. There's some identities, say for example, now we may have our identity based on our complexion. I'm fair, I'm dark. So, Indian kids who go to America, or especially Indian kids who are born in America, what happens, because they're born over there, they want to be Americans. But they have brown skin. Here we may say fair and dark skin, but even our fair skin is brown for Westerners. The fairest of our skin is brown for them. So what happens is, the Indian kids who are born in America, they are called as ABCD. Have you heard this word, ABCD? American born confused desis. So they want to be Americans, but their body their physique is brown, so they can't really be Americans in that sense. Or sometimes they are referred to as coconuts. Coconut is, they're brown from outside, white from inside. So for some people, their complexion may become a very prominent part of their identity. For most of us, we are aware, okay, I'm slightly fair, I'm slightly dark. But how much headspace does it take for us? Are we constantly remembering, oh, I'm not fair, or I'm so dark, I'm not so dark? Like for some people, it's like that. People want to tan those who are fair, they may want to tan their skin, and they expose themselves to the sun or whatever. So we have many identities. Now, which identity do we identify with? I hope ये फर्क समझ में आ रहा है। क्या है कि हमारी पहचान है, पर किस पहचान से हम खुद को पहचानते हैं? तो it varies. So for somebody who is an engineer, now once you get an engineering degree or you're studying engineering, you say I'm an engineer. Now that is an important part of our identity. But some people may say, okay, engineering, I would rather go into management, so I do MBA, and then I'm not so much engineer as I'm a management graduate. Some people change their career. So what happens is, they still have that educational qualification, but their identity shifts. So based on our various identities, now some of the stories may be positive, some of the stories may be negative. So our mind doesn't just tell one story, it takes based on our identity. Say if in particular cultures, say a particular educational career or getting a degree from particular college is considered to be a great success. Then if somebody has that degree, then they think, oh, I'm a success. Somebody doesn't have that kind of degree. Then what happens? Then that itself affects. There is so much. Okay, I don't have engineering from this degree or that degree. So I was in America and there's a couple, both of them are spiritually minded couples, and they're very devoted. But the husband has a bachelor's degree and the wife has a master's degree. And then what happens is the husband feels very insecure because of that. So then when I was talking with this, so I told them that is it that she acts superior to you based on that? He says, no, I just feel insecure. So is it a big part for you? Well, for most people, whether you are, once you get into a career and you're going ahead in your career, whether you have master's degree or bachelor's degree, it does not make that much difference. The launching pad, it makes a significant difference. But in the headspace, it occupies a lot of space. So then I asked that Mataji, says, when you introduce yourself to people, do you need to introduce yourself as a masters? You can just tell that I'm an engineer. Both of us are engineers. He said, yeah, that's no big deal for me. I never thought it would affect him so much. It is affecting him. The point I'm making here is what? That there is an identity, but there is a story. Like, I have only this much degree, this person has this much degree. And therefore I feel inferior, I feel insecure. It may not really matter much, but based on the story that the mind is telling, it starts mattering a lot. It could be two brothers are there, and one brother has a bigger house, another brother has a smaller house. Now, the brother living in the bigger house may have big fights inside the house. And the brother living in a smaller house may actually have a relatively happier family life. But the bigger house, a story starts around that. So we could have one big source of our stories are income. For many people, their net worth becomes their self-worth. And how much I earn is who I am. So what happens? We tell ourselves stories based on various parameters. And some of these become very, very important and defining for our mind. So what Bhagavad Gita does, what Bhakti does, is to tell us that while all these are parts of us, and depending on which our mind strongly identifies with, a particular story will come in there. But underlying these all, in another way, that all of these are roles. Our role can be based on our job, our education, our age, our income level. But underlying these all, these you can call it as it's our functional identity. But underlying them all is our fundamental identity. Who am I? Tomorrow, I may not be a young man. Tomorrow I may change my citizenship. I may no longer be Indian. Tomorrow, some people may be a doctor and some scandal can happen that medical degree can be taken away from them. All those roles can go away from us. Our functional identity can go away from us. But our fundamental identity is I am a soul. I am a part of Krishna. This is one identity that can never be taken away from us. This is always there for us. And in some of these identities, we might be successful, and that our life story might be going positively. In some of these roles, our life story might be going negatively. That means somebody might be very successful professionally, but maybe they have had a divorce and their family is broken apart. Somebody might have a lot of bank balance, but their health is collapsing. Somebody may have a great reputation, but they also have depression. So what happens is that in our life at a functional level, some stories can be positive, some stories can be negative. But the problem becomes when we identify with one particular role too much. Then what happens? We get overwhelmed by that. So what the Bhagavad Gita does is all these are roles we are playing, but we are not the role, we are the soul. And the story of the soul is always positive. The soul is a part of God, and just as Krishna was with Arjuna, the Lord is always with us. So the soul is always pure. There may be many conditionings inside us, but inside the soul there is no conditioning. There is only purity, there is positivity, there is potency over there. So with that, let's look at the last paragraph and make a couple of points and we'll conclude. Who would like to read something from here? Yes, please.
Let this remembrance of your merciful integration of my life story into your plan be the guiding and guarding light for all my decisions. Let it be the guiding factor that pushes me forward even through difficult situations. Let it also be the guarding factor
that keeps me away from knee-jerk reactions that take me away from you.
Yes. So what it means is that in these stories, if in one of the stories we are being very successful, we may develop a lot of ego. I am such a great person. And if any of these services stories we are going negative, we may develop a lot of insecurity, inferiority. And what is important is that if we consider it's like a movie. In the movie, sometimes the hero might be beaten, sometimes the hero might beat the villain. But through it all, there is a director's plan. And in the director's plan, the hero will be ultimately victorious. So, the story of our life under Krishna's direction, it is not a tragedy. It is not a story where the hero is killed or something like that. Our body may end, but the soul does not end. So that higher vision that I am a part of Krishna and Krishna has a plan for my life, that is a bigger story. And to the extent we can live our life in the light of that story, to then the routine ups and downs of our life will not affect us that much. I will explain this with 2 quick points. Now, initially for us, what happens when something in the world is very big, the world story becomes very big for us. For us, the world is very big, and God is quite small, then what God is doing, does God even exist, all that becomes minor. When I was introduced to Bhakti about 30 years ago, I started sharing about it very enthusiastically with all my friends, relatives, acquaintances. So one of my uncles told me, God, I have a very good relationship with him. Now I had never seen him go to temple or talk about anything spiritual. I said, what do you mean by a good relationship? He says, mutual non-interference. He is happy there, I am happy here. So many people may think that God is basically irrelevant for my life. But the point is that I may be happy here right now, but life keeps going up and down. I won't be happy forever. So God is very small. When I say God is very small, that means what? And the world is very big, that means the story of my life associated with the world becomes very big. That means if I don't do well in my career, if I don't do well in this particular relationship, if I don't do so well in my reputation, then my mind starts telling a story, you are a loser. Not just you have lost or you are lost, but you are a loser. But as we practice bhakti and as we grow spiritually, the things change. The world becomes smaller and God becomes bigger for us. So now, it's not in the world we consider it false, it's still real. But God becomes bigger for us. And when God becomes bigger, that means, yes, in life, I will sometimes have success, I will sometimes have failure. But Krishna is with me and Krishna is for me. For the Pandavas, they were great devotees, they were very virtuous people. Still, they had suffering through their life. However, through all the sufferings, they were always still sheltered in Krishna. So when we practice sadhana bhakti, when we chant the holy names, when we do some puja, kirtan, when we come for satsang, it's not just a cultural activity. It's just one more activity I will do. Actually, this activity should change the story we are telling ourselves. Or rather, should change the story which is important for us, which is the most defining story for us. And then when that happens, when the world becomes small and God becomes big, when God becomes big, what happens is this brings stability for us. This brings peacefulness and strength for us. Because this is the bigger reality. Through my life, I may sometimes face failure, but Krishna has a plan for my life. And that's how I move forward. And then, when we have stability and strength in coming from our connection with God, then what can we do when we face the world? We can face the world with calmness and clarity. Calmness is with respect to our emotions, clarity is with respect to our intelligence. And that is what happens to Arjuna at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. Nashto moha smritir labdha tvat prasadan mayachyuta sthitosmi gata sandeha karishye vachittam. So nashto moha, that means clarity has come. And sthitosmi, that means calmness has come. So the negative story that was going on in the mind, all that story becomes silenced. And the positive story that comes from our relationship with Krishna, that becomes the most important for us. And that's how, through whatever resolutions we make, it's good to have those resolutions, but understanding, what is motivating me from inside. So what is motivating me from inside? Last visual I concluded it. Here is the soul, and here is the soul, and here is the mind. Now, in the mind, there are many different impressions. So there are some parts of the mind which are wounded. That means, say, maybe we were not as tall as we wanted to be. Maybe we were not as fair as we wanted to be. Maybe we didn't get as much marks as we wanted to be. Some stories could be negative. Some stories could be positive. That in some areas, we are sensitive with respect to emotions. We are good at logical thinking. we are good at setting goals and achieve whatever it is. There are some stories which are positive, some stories which are negative. So instead of, I talk about identity and identification. So we don't identify our identification is not with any of these commentators that are there. It is first and foremost with the soul. Yes, there are positive stories inside my mind, there are negative stories inside my mind. But it's like sometimes in a cricket match, there are very big cricket matches there are multiple commentators. And some commentators are in favor of one country, some commentators are in favor of another country. But the player understands that I am different from all these commentators. And I have my role to play, I have my captain. And the captain has a strategy, and I have a part in the strategy. So, in the mind, there could be many commentators. But for us, our primary identification is not with any of these commentators. Our primary identification is Krishna. The soul has a link with the super soul. Is with Krishna. So this is the source of our primary story. Our identification is, this is our main story. Once we change our story like this, that's why every day we will naturally, through the roles that we play in our life, we will get connected with the other stories. Because we are having a career, we are having some hobbies, we are having some responsibilities. So the other stories will actually start coming into play. But what is important is, we connect ourselves properly with the Lord. We connect ourselves with the Lord, then that story will be what will be the most positive inside us. And when that story is the most positive, then we will find the strength from within, the stability from within, to actually change ourselves for the better, to stick to our resolutions. Even if from inside something starts sabotaging us, we will fight against that, because there is a greater source of positivity inside us. This is what the Gita gives to Arjuna, and this is what the Gita can give each one of us. The last paragraph is here. Who would like to read this last paragraph? Yes.
My dear Lord, bless me so that my life journey can always remain a harmonious part of your unfolding ultimate story.
Unfolding ultimate story. This story is constantly going on. So we may feel we have faced some sort of setback and things have gone wrong and now we're going to work. But the bigger story of our life, becoming a bigger story of our life, that's what we understand, to change our heart, to change our life, to change our character. That was the theme we discussed. I talked about three main things in today's class. First was, I talked about the concept. I often use a framework called, I didn't take out the framework, Chit. Chit is our consciousness. So Chit also means we can expand our consciousness. So what was the concept I took? What are the insights about the concept and what is the takeaway? The concept was that our life journey is shaped by the stories we tell ourselves. So when we want to go in one direction, but sometimes we end up going in a different direction, even the opposite direction. That's not just happening because we don't have enough willpower. That's because there are stories being told inside us which can go against us. So these stories are extremely important, because what happens? The story is how we transform events into experiences. Right? What happens and what it means. So loss is a happening. But I have lost. That is an objective story. That's like unbiased commentator. I am lost. That is a biased commentator. I am a loser. That is a super biased commentator. So which commentator we hear, that is important for us. So for us, one of the biggest things we need to do is change the commentator that we are listening to. So the insights, I talk about two main things. That inside us there is the soul, and there is the mind. And of course, there is the physical side, our body. So, what happens for us is the mind the mind is a storyteller, the mind is a commentator, and it tells various stories. And depending on the stories it tells, it ends up leading us in particular ways. So now the storyteller, how does it tell the story? There I talk about relationship with identity and identification. So we have many roles in our life, but there are some we identify with more. So I talked about how we have many different roles. It can be based on our gender, our age, our income level, our education, our job status, our relationship status, so many things like that. But these are all our functional identities, they are all our roles. And in the course of life, in some of those we may be going up, some of those we may be going down. So now if we identify with one of them too much, we may identify with our career, we may identify with our income, too much, in that we're going wrong, then we start feeling I'm a bad person, I'm a loser. But we have a fundamental identity. This is the identity which will never be lost. The identity is I'm a soul, I am a part of Krishna. A part of Krishna means I have a part in Krishna's plan. So this is what we need to identify ourselves with the most. And the takeaway for us is that we want to make, initially the world will be bigger for us and Krishna will be smaller. What we want to do is, we want to make Krishna bigger and the world smaller. So when we are at this level, then what will happen? The soul is here, but some role from the world will become very big for us. And then this will keep us agitated. But when Krishna becomes bigger for us, then this will keep us not agitated but connected. This will keep us calm, this will keep us peaceful. And then inside our mind, there are many stories that are being told. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative. But those won't affect us so much. So if we want to change ourselves for the better, is strengthening this connection, making this inner connection strong through our spiritual practices will help us get a more positive vision, just like it gave Arjuna. And that way, we can move forward confidently in making our new year and making our future life better. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Are there any questions or comments? We have a few minutes. Yes, please.
As you said, so like bhakti, that is a gradual process of like changing the story. But sir, in like the war, when Arjun was like getting the stories of his mind, then Krishna ji told him the like bigger stories, like the positive stories. So is there anything like in our life which can like immediately like calm us and tell us the bigger stories, like the positive stories?
We have to find it for ourselves. That means there are various ways in which we connect with Krishna. So it could be chanting his holy name, it could be through getting his kirtans, it could be through looking at his pictures, it could be hearing some talks or remembering some lila. So there are various ways in which you can connect with Krishna. Now which of those connections will help us to be reminded of that higher, bigger story? That is where our individuality comes up. So each one of us has a personal relationship with Krishna. And that's why each one of us has to find out how best we can connect with him. So broadly as a sadhana bhakti in which we do certain amount of chanting, certain amount of aarti, puja, kirtan. So important to do as a standard practice. But beyond that, we have to find out what individually connects us with Krishna. Okay. Yes, please. Question.
Sometimes we choose a path that is not suitable for us. We might not got success in that, and at that time mind told us change this path, and it might become profitable for us, so that uh, we change the path to another that is more suitable for us. Is it not right that sometimes mind negative commentary is good for us?
Yes, of course. See, when I said I have lost, that is objective analysis and that is accepted. But when I am saying I am a loser, see, okay, it's very important. See, negative thinking is itself not a bad thing. Hmm? It is inability to stop negative thinking that is a problem. Like, see, if anybody has to make a project, maybe you have to build a skyscraper building, or you want to build a big dam across a river, it's a civil engineer. And now, one of the key things in that is risk assessment. And risk assessment means thinking what all can go wrong. And not everybody has that ability to visualize what all can go wrong. Isn't it? So the ability to think negative is also a gift. It's an important thing to understand. I am an author, and I also act as an editor sometimes. But you know that the writing brain and the editing brain are almost two opposite functions. The writing brain is more creative. Hey, let's try this idea. The editing brain is more critical. Hey, this doesn't work. This doesn't sound very sensible. This isn't linked with this. And now, often those who are very good editors, they are not that good writers. Because what happens? They are always critically evaluating everything that they are creating. This is not good, this is not good, this is not good. But the point is, editors are also very important. In fact, sometimes authors can become some authors, if their books become very successful, they become very well paid. They become successful. But editors, they may never become sensationally successful, but they have a stabler source of income. Because whether the book becomes successful or not, you get your editing pay, editor's fees. So my point is, negative thinking is also a gift. The problem is when we can't stop thinking negative. Now if an editor comes home and it's their birthday and their child has written a letter appreciating them, and the editor brain turns on and starts proofreading that letter. Child will say, I'm expressing my love for you, why are you becoming an editor? You be my mother or my father over here, isn't it? Just accept the affection. So if in a romantic relationship somebody writes a love letter and the other person starts proofreading that love letter, pointing out mistakes, that does not work. So the problem is that negative thinking is not wrong. The world has dangers in it. And recognizing that there are dangers, or recognizing that even we have limitations, that's not a bad thing at all. So that's why I didn't say that all the stories the mind tells are negative. From the mind, positive stories can also come in. And the mind's negative stories are also not a problem. It is when we identify ourselves with that. So for example, if somebody decides that I want to, say, become a manager. Somebody gets into faculty. Somebody becomes a faculty, and then faculty you can do just teaching, you can do research and teaching, or you can get into admin. Somebody decides I'll get into admin. But they find admin very exhausting, very frustrating. Say, I just want to study concepts and I want to teach concepts. Then okay, I don't want to go to the admin direction. I have to focus on teaching and research. That's a good thing. So the problem is if they go into admin and they can't do administrative work, and they're saying because I can't do administrative work, so I'm worthless. That's where, okay, I tried this, does it work out? I have lost. But that doesn't mean I am a loser. So the mind's negative stories become a problem when they become the only story that defines our life. But okay, this negative story is there. That's one part of me that didn't work. There are other parts of me which will work, and let me move on with those. Okay? Thank you, good question. Any other good questions? Yes, please.
आपने कहा था कि हम सोल हैं, पर कैसे?
How can we understand that we are souls?
मतलब जब कोई कहता है कि हम सोल हैं, तो ऐसा लग रहा है कि मतलब वो कह रहा है कि उसको मान लो, मतलब मैं कह रहा हूँ कि सोल है.
See, there are broadly 3 ways to understand about our spiritual identity. First is from our daily experience. See, we often identify with our body. But every night when we go to sleep, our body is not experiencing anything. And yet, we have dreams in which we experience something. So, if I were only my body, then when my body is not experiencing anything, why am I experiencing something? There has to be something more. Now, we may say, oh, it's just the brain. Okay, that's one possibility. But then there are what are called as out-of-body experiences, where some people who had some cardiac arrest, heart attacks or something like that, and during that time they experience themselves from a perspective above the body. The body is being operated in operation theatre and they are above and they are looking at themselves. And now I have written a book called Demystifying Reincarnation, in which I analyzed and outlined many cases. There's one case of one lady in America, in Phoenix, basically. So what happened to her was she had a aneurysm. Aneurysm is like swelling in the brain, and it was way at the bottom of the brain. So it's very difficult to remove the aneurysms at that particular location. So they have Dr. Spendler is a person who has started an operation called Operation Standstill. In that operation, basically, you artificially induce a cardiac arrest so that the heart stops pumping blood. And then no more blood going to the brain. Then all the brain from the blood from the brain is drained out. And then what happens is the cranial cavity is opened, head is opened, and the brain is literally picked out of the head. So you pick up the head, pick up the brain, bring it out of the head, and then you reach the aneurysm. And then you cut off the aneurysm. So now for this to be done, it is essential that the person be unconscious. If in the brain, if there is slight consciousness and the brain is picked up, if the person starts shaking the brain starts shaking, what will happen is the whole operation can get one wrong cut can happen also. So what they do at such times, they have like earphones like that on the ear of the patient, and they are loud, like train whistle like sounds coming constantly. And if the patient responds to even one of those sounds, response means not necessarily moving the hands and legs, but even the brain shows some waves in the sensors. Then they understand the patient is still not unconscious, and they give some further dose of medicine to make them unconscious. And then only they can do the surgery. So this Pam Reynolds was the patient for who the surgery was done. So when she was in that state of complete unconsciousness, not just physical but also neurologically unconscious, no brain waves being seen. So at that time she described what the doctor was saying, what the assistant surgeon was saying. There's a cardiac surgeon was there and there's a neurosurgeon was there. So what the conversation between them was going on. And now they correlated the records with when was the time when this particular thing happened. The surgery, they keep the records of what was done at what times. So it was the time when her brain was completely unconscious. So how can we be conscious when our brain is unconscious? That means our consciousness comes from something beyond the brain. And beyond that, if you consider our brain itself, it's made of fundamentally the same matter as this mic is made of. It's made of atoms and molecules. So if I put a gulab jamun on this particular mic, the gulab jamun is not going to say, oh, the mic is not going to say, oh, this is so tasty. So, but my tongue or your tongue experiences it to be tasty. So if both are just matter, then how did matter develop the capacity to experience matter? Why does this matter not have the capacity to experience matter? Oh, this is tasty. And why does this matter have the capacity to experience matter? Where does that come from? So actually that comes from something which is non-material. Something which has the capacity for consciousness inherent within it. So there are a number of scientific pointers. It's not just a matter of assertion. In fact, despite all our research, I'll just make one last point about this. despite all the exhaustive research of the brain that has been done, and especially in the last few years, neuroscience has expanded enormously. But despite all that research, science has not been able to find any place in the brain which is the origin of consciousness. The current mainstream scientific understanding is there is a very good book about this called The Brain Wars. The brain wars means among neuroscientists, there are two theories. One is that the brain is the originator of consciousness. That is the view of some neuroscientists, maybe majority neuroscientists. But a small but influential minority which says the brain is not the originator of consciousness, the brain is the transmitter of consciousness. But consciousness comes from somewhere else and is transmitted through the brain. But the point is, while this is a war going on, and academic war going on in mainstream science, but the thing is, despite so much research, scientists have not been able to find any one area of the brain which is the origin of consciousness. So we have been able to find out which area of the brain is associated with which function. So if somebody gets paralysis of the hands because of this particular area of the brain is damaged, so that we can find out quite exhaustively. But we have not been able to find any place where consciousness originates. So that consciousness, there's a Dr. Wilder Penfield, who is considered to be the father of neuroscience and neurosurgery. There's a whole lab dedicated to him in Toronto, in Canada, Toronto. I got to Toronto University speak. So when I told this experiment about this particular point, that so he did almost 40 years of research and he wrote a book called The Mystery of the Mind. And finally he said that the consciousness, that the brain is like a computer, but it is programmed by something beyond it. The source of consciousness is extracerebral. So there's a lot of scientific evidence for the point that consciousness does not originate from the brain, but it comes from something beyond it. So thank you very much for your thoughtful questions, and my best wishes and prayers that this new year helps you to change the story that goes on inside you, that defines you, and therefore your new year also becomes very auspicious and glorious by Krishna's blessings. Shri Krishna Bhagwan ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.
Hare Krishna Guruji. Rohini Sud Guruji told that wonderful energy of mind as commentator. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
We would like to thank Guruji for his wonderful session. So Guruji explained how the mind works and how we should work with the mind.
Let us thank Prabhuji for this wonderful year gift and helping us to take resolutions in the right way, in the right, as Prabhuji said, like in the right mood, with the right motivation and the right method. Let us thank Prabhuji one time, thank Prabhuji by one time loudly chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. So here are a few announcements. So as previously MI told about Prabhuji's books, there are many wonderful books, but some of the latest books, like there are two, is available here. One is Gita for CEO and Prayers Inspired by Bhagavad Gita, that you have right now in your hand.
We have the other book, I'll just explain about it. We have the other book also, I'll explain about it.
Gita for CEO.
These two. Yeah, this is Gita for the CEO. So this Gita, Prayers Inspired by Bhagavad Gita, there is the 122 prayers here, based on the first 6 chapters. And there is a very accessible table of contents. So you can read whichever prayer you want. There are prayers when we feel lonely or misunderstood or abandoned, prayers when we feel our desires going wild and crazy, making us crazy. There are prayers when we feel as if we have become very spiritually dry and we feel ourselves very far away from God. And there are prayers when we feel as if we are lost and directionless in our life. So whatever be our particular emotional need or state, we'll find a prayer for that in this. Many people have told me that also if before their chanting, if they read one prayer, it helps them to calm and focus while they are doing their spiritual practices also. And this is published by HarperCollins, which is one of the biggest publishers in the world. It's a national bestseller. And like I was drawing some simple conceptual diagrams. There are many conceptographics over here in the book throughout. So basically, across the world, there's a lot of interest in traditional wisdom. So from Greece, Stoicism has become popular. From China, there is a book called The Art of War has become popular. From Japan, Ikigai has become popular. So HarperCollins wanted me to similarly present the Bhagavad Gita in a way that would be contemporarily understandable. So Arjuna was not just a great warrior or a great archer or a great devotee, he was also a great leader. So the Gita's wisdom can help us not just to grow spiritually, but also to grow in all areas of our life. And there are 10 principles taken from the Bhagavad Gita in this book. How to form a vision for our life, how to spring back from failures and have resilience, how to speak more sensitively, effectively, transformatively, how to take responsibility when things go wrong, and how to let go, or when to take responsibility and push on, and when to let go when things are not working out. So this is not only for CEOs. Ultimately, every one of us is meant to be a CEO of our own life. So both these books are available, and if any of you would like to have, I will be here after to sign the books also. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for explaining. I hope this might inspire many of us to get that book as soon as possible. So this was one. So what we can do is, like, we can collect the books, we can give it this side. So can we have? Okay. So next thing.
Tell about the prices.
Yeah. So for these books, the prices are for each book it is 450 individually, 450, and if you are taking combined, so it's like 800. Hare Krishna. So another thing is, like, how many of you filled that attendance sheet? You have received that attendance sheet? Okay. So can we have sheet? Rest of us attendance sheet bhar diya? Okay. We can circulate the attendance sheet, or like even later on. Third thing, like for prasadam, so devotees, all the first year IIT BHU and BHU first years, devotees will be having prasadam here in first floor. Rest all the devotees from IIT BHU